How's it going, guys? I hope you are staying safe and healthy amongst the COVID pandemic. So today I'm going to be reviewing the Final Crisis story in the trade paperback format, kind of giving my thoughts or opinions on it, and give you a little bit of an update on what's going on with me in terms of future content, stuff like that. So let's get right into it. So the price of this book starts off when it first released brand new. 25.99 Canadian or 19.99 US. Yeah, the Canadian dollar is taking it hard in the butt right now. So let's talk about the actual plot. It says right here on the back, what happens? Evil triumphs. The anti-life equation, the ultimate weapon, a mathematical formula created by the Lord of Evil, Darkseid, that will overthrow reality and dispel the very concept of free will by enslaving all those exposed to it. Following the final battle of the New Gods, Darkseid tumbles through time, coming to rest on Earth where he gathers together a vast army of supervillains tasked to eliminate the greatest threats to his plan. Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, Batman, Superman, and many more of the universe's greatest heroes will be drawn into the most important battle they will ever face, as time and space is sucked out of existence and the very fabric of reality is fading away. Written by superstar creator Grant Morrison, with stellar art from J.G. Jones, Doug Mankey, and more. So, what does this include? This collects Final Crisis 1 through 7, Superman Beyond 1 through 2, Submit 1, and Batman 682 through 683. Which is pretty good considering it's just a trade paperback. You might be wondering, why do they include so much extra content for trade papers? Usually a trade paperback just includes the main story. Well, that probably has to do with the fact that Final Crisis by itself makes 0 sense. Well, it does. You just need pretense. You need some kind of, knowledge beforehand. I never even read this description on the back before I started opening it up and reading, and that left me even more confused. Honestly, I kind of wish I'd read earlier. Here's some of the art. See Darkseid here looking like a badass, total beefcake, awesome looking dude. We got Ultraman in here too. Superman. But we got some Green Lantern action going on here. Art is incredible. It is stellar, to say the least. Here's a nice little cover image. Almost freaky how realistic they make. Yeah, so that's Final Crisis in terms of just pure content. When you read this story, what do I think about the story? What did I think about while I was reading it? I was maybe less than 10 pages in, and I was confused as hell. I had no clue what was going on. And then maybe a few issues in, they start talking about this war between the gods, kind of giving some pre-context of what might be happening. But, even with that small bit of pre-context, it's incredibly complex. This is one of the more complex stories to read, without a doubt. So, just to enhance my reading experience, and I haven't done it yet, but I actually purchased The Death of the New Gods in single issues because the trade paperback's a little costly. In contrast, I got this for like $15, and on top of that, the guy who sold them to me included some countdowns. Final Crisis, but I've been told that Final Crisis countdowns make no sense because they kind of got ripped out of continuity the moment Final Crisis happened. I'm not really sure, but apparently, just don't read Countdown to Final Crisis. Just don't do it. So, yeah, these were just nice to have, but I'm definitely not going to really read into them too in-depth. Yeah, Death of the New Gods is some good pre-reading for context. Ultimately, this story, I've been told by many that it's a great story once you understand it. It takes a few reads to get through to understand it fully. It takes some pre-context. So, a little bit of background on each of the heroes, maybe. Some context onto what's been happening in the DC universe at this time and stuff like that. So you got a lot of interesting kind of it's a big crossover event, so there's lots of different characters. They even bring in, I forget what they were called, but it's in the Green Lantern run. Let me see. Alpha Lanterns. So in part of the Green Lantern run, Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run, Alpha Lanterns come into the picture where it's just Green Lanterns are hard to control in the sense that they kind of let emotions guide them. They can be overwhelmed. Why don't we just mix them with a little bit of our old robot tech and kind of make a beautiful little mixture, and they don't even need to use lanterns to charge up. They are a source of power. So that was interesting. But so that kind of pre-context is a little important, I'd say, because the Alpha Lantern does take up a good one or two issues. Like they're in the storyline for a bit. And like if you didn't know what the Alpha Lanterns were, you'd be like, "What's going on here? I've never seen this kind of Green Lantern in my life." It's because they're Alpha Lanterns. Other context, Crisis on Infinite Earths, of course. All previous Crisis events would be nice to know about, mainly just because like it's brief touched on, but a lot of this stuff, it's like you need more context. The format, I deeply regret not using using an omnibus, because like it's just, like they do all the ordering for you. They order all the issues nice and tight together, and they give you all the context you want. But essentially, this entire story is about Darkseid trying to take over the world using the anti-life equation, taking away people's free will. And so everyone else is kind of like fighting back. It's kind of like a rebellion thing. People are seeking refuge places. It's a really interesting story, but it's hard to follow as hell. There's a lot of missing context there. If you just open up this trade paperback and start reading, you need some more information. Death of the New Gods gives context to the war that's brought up here in the back, regarding, Darkseid kind of like falling down to Earth after a war. This has the entire kind of, entire context for the Death of the New Gods in there, which I think is cool. So I'm excited to give that a read. But yeah, like this whole story, I think it just opens up with Orion falling from the sky. Yeah, it's literally just Orion like falling from the sky. So like if you didn't read Death of the New Gods, you're opening this up and you're already like, what's going on? Like, who is this guy? And then you see him in his uniform because he's like landed, and you're like, oh, it's Orion. Okay, but what happened? Like, how did this happen? And then you can also tell there's bits of information like between issues, between key Final Crisis issues. There's things that happen that like you just kind of have to accept happened. You never saw them happen; they just kind of did happen. And I know it's kind of a weird description, but yeah, I don't know. Here are the Alpha Lanterns brought up here. I don't know how well you can see that. The Alpha Lanterns pulling up. But yeah, so it's an interesting story. Great art. Like, look at this Flash. Woo, beautiful. I did like the read. I just found it exceedingly complicated and hard to follow. For me, like I was reading this, and like a large part of me almost wanted to just stop. Like I think I was maybe 4 issues in, and I was like, should I just stop here and buy the omnibus and just read it in that format?